Anybody who's been to CTC events in the past, you know that some of our favorite speakers are always parents or families, because we know that those people are going to give us the truth and that they have walked the walk and done the work. And that's what we all need to hear as parents. I value and appreciate so much someone just being honest and saying, you know, this is really hard and this is what you're going to have to do to get it done. I would rather know that than say, yeah, jump on in, and then it's so much worse than you expect it. I want to know what to expect as much as possible. So this afternoon we're going to do a couple things. We're going to hear from 3 different family groups who are going to talk about CILAs, community integrated living arrangements. Commonly, a group home is what you would consider it. But these 3 have a little bit of a twist to them, I'm going to say, in terms of who they're serving or who owns the house, and just different models that will give you an example of how you can take the traditional group home model and make it your own. Make it work for your son or daughter. And then we're going to also hear from 2 family-founded nonprofits who are looking at housing in a completely different way, a completely creative way of addressing what their vision is for housing and what they want for their children. So I think it's going to be a great afternoon. We're going to start off with Hugh Miller and Beverly Pullman from Our House Communities. Last fall, we mentioned that we do informational tours monthly. We went to see their first house that they set up in Wilmette, and it just blew us away. Just not only the bricks and mortar of the house, but just the model that in terms of serving the residents that live there, the housemates. It was just really inspiring. So I'm thrilled that they're here to share their story. I think they're going to show a video first and then get into description. So please help me welcome Hugh and Beverly.
Thank you all. Thanks for inviting us, and it's a pleasure to be here. When we address people for things like fundraisers and the like, I often have the impression that I'm selling something to people who don't really quite get what we do. In this case, I feel just the opposite, that we are actually among people who know very intimately and immediately what it is that we do. So it's very comfortable being here. I almost feel as if I don't have to say anything, but that's wrong. So we'll talk, and we'll show you a video, and Bev will talk. My name is Hugh Miller, and I'm the president of the board of Our House Communities, which has a website, Our House Communities, all one word, .org, where you can go to visit us. And we started years ago. I will show you the video in just a second. We started years ago as an offshoot of a previous organization called Our Place of New Trier Township. Some of you may have heard of that. It's we started out as a kind of after work and then became for some people, part-time, day program based in Wilmette, organized and set up by Jane Gallery and her board. And it's been going now for a number of years. And in 2014, the then director applied for and received a grant from the Pullman Foundation to do a training of about 14 families through the Center for Independent Futures with the view of setting up a housing arrangement. And we did that training over the winter of 2014 and 2015. And when we completed it, we sort of spun our wheels for a while, but then in 2017, the opportunity came to open the first house. A buyer came forward with a house, and we organized the finances. And we'll talk a little bit after the video about that aspect of it. But the first house is up and running, and one of Bev's family is a resident in that house. And the house also serves as a community center for other people in the organization to visit and drop in and participate socially. But let's start with a video, and it's got a lot of information up front, but later on you'll be able to see some images of us at play in the house. So if we could have that video. let me just say a few more words about what we are, and then I'd like Bev to talk about the first house that you saw some images of there at the end of the video. We're interested in residences that are, first of all, person-centered. Now, that's jargon that I'm sure you're aware of. It means that what we're trying to do is we're trying to give the residents in our houses as much autonomy, as much freedom, as much decision-making capacity, and provide them with the resources to do that and realize it as we possibly can. And to use the words of Simone de Beauvoir, you want an open future for your loved ones. You have to excuse me, in my day job, I'm a philosophy professor at Loyola, so I like quoting philosophy people. And we're also family-oriented, or as the video said, family-driven. That is to say, we really want residences where the families go and come, they're very much integrated in and part of the lives of the residents and of each other's lives. One of the things we discovered when we did this training was how much we've become part of each other's lives in the group. And we think that's very, very important. At the 907 house, people who don't even have residents in the house, we come and we have dinner together because it's an opportunity to be part of a community together. And we want to grow those communities and build as many of them as we possibly can. It's a challenge in that, we are trying to set up affordable housing in a place like Wilmette or Winnetka or someplace like that where affordable housing is an oxymoron. But we're trying, and we're particularly interested in funding models that will allow us not to rely on, for instance, exclusively CILA. This first house is a combination of home-based service payment and private pay, and has a full-time staffer. So we try to make that work. We're trying to reach out to organizations like Home First IFF and UCP Seguin, who seem to be solving the problem of how do you have houses with people who have different kinds of funding streams, including in some cases CILAs. So we're exploring all possible alternatives to grow. We've reached the first plateau. There's 1,000 plateaus that you have to ascend to. We've made the first jump. We've made the commitment. We've opened our first home, and we're moving. And now the next task is home 2 and home 3 and home 4, so that we have as many Our House communities as we can. Bev, if you'd like to see something about 907.
Okay. At 907, we have 4 guys that live there, mid-20s to early 30s. The objective of every family that had their son move into that home was compatibility, and that was the key factor. And I'm happy to report that these young men get along beautifully with one another. It's great. They all have their own bedrooms. We have a house mom who comes in on Friday evening, late in the day. Thursday. And she has her own bedroom there, and she stays with them overnight through Tuesday morning. And then the other 2 nights, because of the needs of one of our residents, we have 2 young men that come in the evening hours and stay overnight. So the house is not occupied at all during the day. All the boys either have some type of part-time job or volunteer work. And they also go to the Our Place program also, many of them during that period of time. The house mom, it's really a family. If we had more pictures of the house, you'd see that. She really works with the boys to help them be as independent. They've all really grown in the 2 years they've lived in the house. They also, she helps them prepare their meals. She's an excellent cook. We got very lucky there. They're not eating McDonald's. And really, really has worked really hard to help them grow and develop. And during the weekend, she does a lot of things with them. They go out in the community, take advantage of things that are available. They are really close to the lake, so they take advantage of Gilson Park. Movies they go to together. It's wonderful. It's like my son has 3 other brothers So it's just a great model for them in this regard. As family members, we do meet about every 6 weeks just to, talk about things that have come up. We have different roles as family members. The fathers have taken on the role of mowing the grass, so we don't outsource that. We have another family member that really helps with the accounting as far as expenses, because again, it's a private pay model in that regard. One of the families, of course, owns the house, so they're the landlord, so our sons pay rent. And the biggest expense, as Hugh alluded to, is of course the expense of the staff, when you have a full-time staff person and 2 part-time. And that's the biggest expense. But we really try to do as much as we can to economize and make this model work. We do have the Wednesday dinners, which are incredible. Every family member that's part of our house communities volunteers their time to come to the house on Wednesday. We have a schedule developed. The goal there is to really have meals such that everyone that comes to the house for those meals has a role in helping to set up and prepare the meal in some regard based upon their own abilities. And we've loved it, and we've had a lot of success there. And that's really, how the house has worked. Any particular questions we'd be open to addressing? Yeah.
Are you licensed through the state, or do you have to be licensed?
We're not licensed.
We're not licensed and don't have to be.
No.
That's something that we're exploring in terms of future houses. One of the reasons that we've avoided SILA is that would require licensing. Mm-hmm. But in recent conversations with the people at UCP Seguin, they've told us that they've managed to set up houses which have different kinds of funding streams, including SILAs, mm-hmm. which don't require a license. Now, they happen to have a license, mm-hmm. but they don't run some of the houses that they've helped set up. Yeah. And some of the organizations that have been set up with their assistance don't require state licensing.
Yeah.
We have another question.
Without getting into too much personal information, was the house designed for the disabilities of the 4 boys?
Not really. The location was critical in the sense that we were successful in securing a grant from New Trier Township, so we did need to find a house in the New Trier area. It is a ranch that was converted with the second level. None of our residents have any, well, one of the residents has some limited mobility issues, very limited. So his bedroom is on the first floor, so that he doesn't have to navigate the steps. But we haven't had to make any accommodations to the house.
In a second house, my daughter has severe mobility issues, walks with a walker. And so our own house has had to be rebuilt, and the next house that she gets into will have to be accommodated to her.
Do you have an open house meeting time, anything that we can visit?
If you would like to have a visit, the best thing to do is just to contact us by email. Go to the ourhousecommunities.org website, and you can write to me. I'm just president at ourhousecommunities.org, and I will arrange something for you. Sure.
We have time for one more question.
Could you share a rough idea of operating budget for an annual basis?
On an annual basis, well, probably the most relevant figure would be cost per resident per month, which we're bringing it at just under about $3,000. It's about $2,800, I think $2,800, $2,900. And that includes everything. That includes rent, food, staffing costs.
Right.
That has required extreme cleverness in management. But one of the things that we found out is that a good board and a good group of families and a resourceful group of families can do it. And that's one of the first things that really held us off in taking the leap in the first place. We thought, can we do this? Is really complex, but we've gotten it done. And please, you can do it. If we can do it, you can do it. It's doable. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of thinking and planning and what-ifing. And if one of you is really good with Excel spreadsheets, bless you, because my partner knows more about Excel than the people who wrote the program. And she can make numbers literally sit up and sing and dance. And thanks to that, and the resources and abilities of other people on the board and the sheer number of elbow grease hours, we've managed to make it work. But of course, now what we have to do is we have to realize some increase in scale. We have to build capacity so that what we want to try to do now is we want to try to get to the point where we have enough houses that can contribute to and fundraise for a central fund so that we can begin to do things from some sort of centrally directed perspective. And we're not yet at that level of scale.
I'm sorry, I might have missed it at first. Is the home owned by the 501c3?
No, the home is not owned by the 501c3 rents.
Right.
Rents it.
Right, but in the future we may end up owning homes.
So
Yeah.
who owns the home?
One of the families actually owns the home,
Yeah, one of the-
is the proprietor of the home, but pays into the fund for it like everybody else.
Yeah. Like all of our boys pay rent to the landlord, and one of the families owns the home in that
Can't keep
regard.
that rolling.
Yeah.
Let's give
And we've tried to scale it down, because the only thing we outsource is really for payroll. Everything else, as families, we take on a very active role to help manage and keep the costs down.
Let's give Bev and Hugh a great big thank you.
Thank you.